And again, this part and then this part. Let's see,
Actually,
we'll read the whole thing.
the whole
Yeah,
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay.
Sorry.
That's
And then
Yeah,
stop.
that was
Okay.
notes to myself. Stop.
Okay, Sean's in now as a panelist.
Okay.
We're ready to go.
So we're ready?
Yep. Sounds good.
Good evening. This will start what is it, June 17th, Landmarks Commission meeting. We'll start with roll call. So, where's me? Andy is not present. Kathy,
Here.
Sean,
Here.
Quinlivan, is he remote? Here, I heard it here. Okay.
Sean, if you could put your volume up a little higher.
I'll try.
Okay, thanks.
Tom
Here.
and Heidi is not present.
Not present.
All right, great. So, we will start the meeting. Today's. Oh,
Hey.
just in time.
Sorry,
Thanks, Andy.
were we at roll call?
Roll call.
We just finished.
Oh, right, I mean,
Andy?
the roll call,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, the last one on roll call, Andy Coghlan here.
Yeah.
Call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda is from visitors, general comments and questions from the public for topics not on the agenda. Is there anyone here or online who would have topics to bring up that are not on the agenda? Hearing none, we will move on to item 2 of the agenda, quasi-judicial public hearing. This is a de novo hearing and is an initial evidentiary hearing of project number PLHIS 20240674. Major historic alteration at Bunkenbrew. It's a major historic alteration request to add a dormer to the west facing roof line, relocate the fence on the east side of the property, relocate a gazebo, modify an existing entrance arbor, replace 3 exterior doors and side lights on the east, west, and south elevations, and add a new ADA ramp with railing to the south facing elevation. It's a type 3 quasi-judicial review through the Landmarks Commission for 42 Northwest Hawthorne Avenue. The applicant will have the burden of proving that he or she is entitled to the approval sought. The applicable criteria for this application include the Bend Urban Area Comprehensive Plan, Chapter 3 and Chapter 10.20 Historic Preservation Code, and the Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties. Testimony and evidence at this hearing must be directed toward the criteria set forth in the staff report and other criteria in the Bend General Plan or Bend Development Code that you believe is applicable to, or any other criteria in the National Register of Historic Places program that any person believes applied to this decision. Failure on the part of any person to raise an issue with sufficient specificity to afford the Landmarks Commissioners and parties to this proceeding an opportunity to respond to the issued precludes appeal to the City Council or Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. Additionally, failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the Landmarks Commission to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. The hearing will be conducted in the following order. 1, the staff will give a report. 2, the applicant will then have an opportunity to offer testimony and evidence. 3, proponents of the application will then be given a chance to testify and present evidence. 4, when all proponents have testified, opponents to the appeal will then be given a chance to testify and present evidence. 5, after both proponents and opponents have testified, the applicants will be allowed to present rebuttal testimony, but may not present new evidence. 6, at the Landmark Commission's discretion, if the proponents presented new evidence on rebuttal, opponents may be recognized for a rebuttal presentation. 7, at the conclusion of this hearing, the staff will be afforded an opportunity to make any closing comments. The commission may limit the time period for the presentations. Before the close of the hearing, any person has the right to request an opportunity to present additional evidence, argument, or testimony regarding the application. If the hearing is continued or the record left open, the applicant shall be allowed at least 7 days after the record is closed to all parties to submit final written arguments, but no new evidence in support of the application. Do any of the commissioners have any ex parte contacts, prior hearing observations, biases, or conflicts of interest to declare? If so, please state the nature and extent of those.
Just declare that I walk the property like I usually do.
Okay, okay. Any others?
No.
Okay. Does any party wish to challenge any commissioner based on ex parte contacts, biases, or conflicts of interest? Sounds like no, hearing no challenges, we'll proceed with staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Michelle Patrick.
Thank you. Disclaimer, I don't know how to get this little square off the screen. We're gonna ignore it. So good evening, commissioners. My name is Michelle Patrick. I'm an associate planner in the planning division. And as Commissioner Coughlin just mentioned, today you'll be hearing an application, PLHIS 2024-0674. This is a historic major alteration to the Lucas House. The subject property is located at 42 Northwest Hawthorne Avenue. This is just west of the Parkway, just east of Hill Street. And the underlying zoning district for the property is mixed use urban. The Lucas House is a locally designated historic and cultural resource, as stated in Table 3.1 of the Bend Comprehensive Plan, and was constructed sometime between 1908 and 1911. Its significance is that it's recognized to be one of the first non-framed structures in the city of Bend, one of the first brick structures in the city of Bend, and it's historically been used as a boarding house. I will say there is limited information in local and state files on this resource, but this is one of the oldest photos on the record, and this was provided by the Deschutes Historic Museum. This is a current photo of the front of the property. This is facing south towards Northwest Hawthorne Avenue. And this is a recent photo of the rear of the property. You can see the east-facing elevation here with that white door, the north-facing elevation. And then this photo also shows some recent improvements that have been constructed over the past 5 years. So that white building is a bathhouse. There's outdoor seating that's associated with food carts that were approved on site in 2019. And this is a recent photo of the west side yard. And this includes this exterior staircase that was also approved by staff in 2019. So the scope of the project includes a number of different requests. So we're going to walk through each of the elevations to demonstrate what's actually going on here and what's proposed. So on the south facing elevation, the applicant proposes to add a new ADA ramp, and that'll span the length of the facade to allow patrons to access the front of the building with more ease. The front door is proposed to be replaced along with the side lights on either side of the door. The applicant has proposed to relocate a fence that's visible here outlined in red and bring it closer, basically even with the south facing facade. And you can also see the proposed dormer visible on this elevation, but that one is actually proposed on the west facing facade, as you can see here. And the egress door at the top of the staircase is also proposed to be replaced. And a new arbor is proposed on the ground level here to replace an existing arbor. Oops. The east facing elevation, minor changes. There is a door that's proposed to be replaced along with side lights. And there's no changes explicitly proposed on the north facing elevations, but the dormer is visible from this view. And the remainder of the changes are shown on the proposed site plan. So there is a gazebo on the east side yard that's proposed to be moved further south along, you can see just underneath that is the proposed fence line. There is a sign that's proposed to be relocated on the east side of the property. That was previously in what was the right of way, so same sign, just new location. There are some new trees shown here as well, including some between the gazebo and the fence. And the two landings that are highlighted here, they're shown on the site plan as new, but they're not mentioned anywhere else in the materials. So staff included a recommended condition of approval that if these are really intended to be constructed, that they be submitted in a subsequent application that clearly addresses the details of the proposal, dimensions, materials, and historic compliance. And on this note, I will also mention another condition of approval we added in the staff report is the submission of a final plan set that shows full, accurate, consistent scope of work for the project, because many of the items were just inconsistent and required a lot of clarification. So I just want to tie up loose ends as we move forward. So the remaining slides are going to cover the applicable standards and the recommended conditions of approval. So this application is subject to the Historic Preservation Code, namely the criteria of approval and the design approval criteria or design review criteria. I'm also including the Bend Development Code in this because the proposal is subject to the standards of the underlying zone as well as landscaping and our other design standards section. This is addressed in the staff report and will be reviewed more thoroughly at the building permit review, but we're not going to go into detail on this with the presentation, so we can focus on the historic preservation criteria. So the Historic Preservation Code requires that the alteration not change the qualities for which the structure is recognized. The applicant has provided an exterior ramp plan and foundation plan that shows how the proposed ADA ramp on the front of the facade will be constructed, including footings right up against the existing lava rock foundation that you can see in this photo here. The railings are going to be installed along the length of the ramp as well. And so, as I mentioned, there's limited information on the Lucas House, but one of the key reasons for its significance is its brick masonry, and that's something we want to make sure is preserved with the alteration that's close to the facade. So we included a recommended condition that additional details be provided to clarify how the ramp won't damage the existing masonry, including the brickwork, the belly band, and the lava rock foundation. The Historic Preservation Code also requires that the alteration be compatible with the appearance and character of the historic structure. And we're going to cover a few examples of this in the next couple slides. So overall, staff found that most of these changes were appropriate and compatible with the Lucas House. Two of the smaller elements of the proposal here include this new arbor that's going to replace an existing arbor that's kind of comprised of rough cut pieces of the tree that used to exist on this property. So this is a much more appropriate design. And the sign is one that was previously approved. This is just going to be in a location that's on site and not in the right of way. So again, we support that. The proposed dormer is also found to be compatible with the structure. So the pitch matches that of the existing gable on the north and south of the dwelling or of the structure. And while portions of the roof do need to be removed to accommodate this, the applicants stated that this is because of egress requirements and head height that are required by building code. And so in order to create this, they do need to remove some of those materials, but the materials that will be replacing them will match the color and the material of the existing structure as best as possible. So you've got a cedar shake siding that will be painted white, knee braces that'll match the gables on the north and south, and then the fascia and soffit will also be painted to match. Another element that was found to be compatible was this new proposed front door that is going to be, facing the northwest Hawthorne Avenue. So this new wood front door is going to have 10 glass panels, and it'll replace a non-historic door that appears to be fiberglass. And new side lights are also proposed, which will match a historic side light that's on the east-facing elevation that we'll discuss in a little bit here. And the applicant also proposes to retain the cedar shake siding that's just under the side lights you can see there. So one of the elements we found to not be compatible was the relocation of the gazebo structure and the fence. So these photos show the current location of the gazebo and the fence, the gazebo being the higher structure here in these images. So in the submitted materials, the applicant proposes to move the fence south to line up with the south-facing elevation. And they also propose to move the gazebo structure, I think 14 feet to the south as well. So the gazebo was found to be an existing non-permanent structure back when the food carts were approved in 2019. That site plan shows the gazebo, I think 43 feet from the south property line. So it has since migrated south. So it's currently in a location that wasn't approved. And it's also changed slightly, and we now have some non-historic elements on the gazebo, most specifically this like plexiglass siding. And the fence, similarly, there was an application to install this fence that's right here now in 2017. And originally that was proposed to line up with the south-facing elevation. But the applicant worked with staff to keep it in this location because it allowed higher visibility of this double row of windows that you can kind of see right in here. So consistent with that determination, staff recommends in the staff report that the gazebo be relocated to be in the location that it was approved in 2019 or as far back on the property as possible, and that the fence be maintained in the same location to, again, not block the view of these historic windows. With that, one additional component that I didn't raise in the staff report was that there are trees proposed as well between the gazebo and the fence in that new location for privacy. And ultimately, as part of the conditions we have in the staff report, we recommend updated landscaping here, a little bit more maintenance on the front of that property to make sure that this historic structure is visible and there's a little less invasive species and a little bit less cheatgrass going on here. And that the proposed poplars not be installed, as those will kind of create a little bit of a privacy wall, which I understand is what the applicant is going for. But we do want this historic structure visible from the view of the street. But in general, staff does support the installation of more trees on the subject property, as some of them have kind of died over time. Oh, and one more element on this particular area of the site, there's also the lower structure proposed here, or that exists here and is also visible in this lower photo. This is what the applicant referred to as a winter shelter. And this was included in the application materials at first and then got pulled out. Ultimately, the structure was never approved on site. So what we are recommending is that it be removed from the property or the applicant submit an application to request approval of this structure. One thing that staff notes is that in the existing condition, we're not sure this would meet the requirements of the Historic Preservation Code. So the applicant might have a little bit of work ahead of them if they want to maintain this configuration. So moving on to the design approval criteria. So the alterations of the structure need to be compatible with the related elements of the historic building in terms of the relationship of solids to voids, and then to the extent practicable, original historic architectural elements need to be preserved. So this is a photo of the east-facing door and the proposed door is shown on the elevations. So the proposed door has 10 glass panels here, each with a side light on either side. And it's proposed to be framed into the existing openings so that there's not going to be any impact to the existing brickwork. So this isn't an explicitly recommended condition of approval, but because you're trading a solid door for a glass door, the commission could consider requesting a solid door in this place to more accurately match the historic door that is there. Another comment staff had on this particular element of the proposal was just having accurate drawings and accurate manufacturer door information, so those conditions are listed as well, just because it was unclear if the proposed door and side light combination is something the manufacturer could produce and if those dimensions would fit this opening. I'm feeling confident that an applicant can provide this. I think though, more significantly on this particular element, the applicant indicated that one of the side lights was historic, and you can kind of see my little red arrow pointing to it. It's the side light on the right, and it has the 2-panel glass. This design that's proposed is based off this historic side light, but it wasn't clear if this side light was proposed to be removed or retained. So I would recommend as written in the staff report, that the applicant clarify if this side light will be retained, and if it's proposed to be replaced, I would recommend that the Landmarks Commission ask for additional information as to why it can't be repaired or rehabilitated and why it can't be preserved with the dwelling. And so lastly, we have this replacement west-facing door that's going to be on the second story of the structure. And again, this is proposed to be replaced to meet egress requirements. If you think back to the previous slide showing the dormer will raise the head height here. The door needs to be able to open appropriately in accordance with building code. So right now it's a French door with windows, and the applicant has proposed a solid door, solid wood door to replace it. And again, this is similar to my last comment on the east facing elevation. It's not an explicit recommendation, but the commission could consider requiring a glass panel door here to more closely match the existing French door instead of the wood door the applicant has proposed. So it's a little bit of information, but ultimately the staff recommends the Landmarks Commission approve the major historic alteration request to add a dormer, replace the existing entrance arbor, replace 3 exterior doors and side lights, and add a new ADA ramp. However, we do recommend that you deny the proposed fencing relocation and gazebo relocation on the east side of the property. That concludes my presentation, but I am happy to take any questions that have come up.
I have one question, and it
Yeah.
may be more appropriate for the applicant,
Yeah.
but in the picture of the east facing door and that you showed,
Mhm.
it looks like, just looking at the light on the left of the door is wider than the one on the right.
Yeah.
Is a wider door proposed to fill the gap so they can use a narrow door or narrow light?
So
Or what's happening to the brick on that wider side?
that was part of something I brought up in the staff report as well, because we didn't get existing elevation, so it was unclear how wide this proposed or the existing door is. Obviously, it's clear that one side light is different in the photo. So I did recommend that we condition that language is actually in front of me, but I believe it's condition 7 or 8 that the applicant provide additional documentation to clarify the existing and proposed doorway and side light dimensions on all proposed replacement doors and side lights to confirm there will be no impact to the existing doorway openings and brickwork. And that they revise the elevations if needed. Yeah.
Do we know if that door is original or because it looks like it's been retrofitted?
That's a great question. It's
Yeah.
certainly old. Don't know if it's original. The applicant may be able to provide more information.
Michelle, I'm just interested in the, what elevated this application from type 2 to type 3? Was that, was that Heidi's call or was that, other?
So we decided together that the number of elements in this proposal warranted a Landmarks Commission approval. Yeah.
Thank you.
First, on the west side under the dormer, there's a staircase
Mhm.
there that you said was approved in 2019.
Mhm.
If there is that going to be replaced along with this, or if there's damage, does that have to come back to us for a redesign or? can that be handled in the office?
So no changes have been proposed to the staircase. Based on what they're showing here, that's only work on the roof and then replacing that door. If there is damage, I guess it would depend on the extent of that, but I would imagine that could be handled administratively. Heidi and I would likely talk about that.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, we can move on to the, hear from the applicant. So is there someone representing the applicant here or online?
The owner wanted to speak themselves, but I'm not sure if they.
Yes.
It's Katie, right?
Yeah.
Yes, so our applicant is here if you want
Yeah.
to say anything.
Frankie and Jay were planning to speak, and they're on Zoom, can they? Yes,
Mhm.
I'll be
Yep.
as well, yeah.
Okay, so raise your hand, applicant. And staff will unmute you.
Okay, it's Jay Charles Griggs, you're unmuted, you can speak now.
Okay, thanks, Miss Patrick. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, great. And thank you, Katie, for jumping in on that. I'll try to be brief. So first of all, thank you, Michelle. You've done a lot of work on this, and we appreciate it, working with our designer, Katie, in the room to get us this far. So thank you. We're also basically 90% in agreement. So that's the good thing. And we think this is positive for all of us. So try to be brief again. First, we did originally apply under a type 2, and we thought thought that would be appropriate, but we accepted type 3, consistent with what Michelle said. On the east-facing door, and Katie, who's in the room, may be able to comment as well. But yes, we did notice they're different sizes. At least one of those side lights is not historic. Primarily, though, we're doing this for building purposes. This is an ADA requirement per our design code, and therefore the door had to be widened anyway. And so what Katie has done is at least made that consistent and aligned with the south-facing door so that those side lights are the same size and congruent with the historical design. So I'll leave it there. I don't know if Katie is in a position to comment now, or perhaps later I can go on.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So three items we wanted to talk about. Frankie is the co-applicant with me and co-owner of this project. I'm going to tackle the first item. He'll tackle the remaining two. Concerning the condition of approval number 11, the new permit for the historic Lucas House front yard sign. Admittedly, getting a new permit, it's not the end of the world. It's not a deal breaker for us, but we just wanted to add to the staff report. As Michelle said, this is the exact same sign, already approved by the city. It was only removed because the city required us to dedicate land for the Hawthorne Bridge project. So really, the reason they're requesting this new permit is because we didn't have details on how it would be reinstalled. We just provided the new location. So admittedly, that's not there. But the reason is because we're not changing anything. The installation will be exactly the same as stated in the original permit. The only thing that's changed is that location, and that is provided in the newly updated site plan that Katie has drafted for the city. So the location is approved by the city, or at least they're recommending it. It's only a few feet away. It'll maintain the same alignment and visibility. It just seemed a little excessive for us under the circumstances to require, an entirely new permit for something that really was out of our hands, that the city required, and could probably be addressed simply by us verifying that the installation will be the same. So that's why we're requesting on condition 11 that it be removed. Frankie, do you want to jump in on the other elements? Oh, he may need to be unmuted as well, Michelle. I apologize. He's coming from another location.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, thanks. Appreciate it for everybody's work on this project. The other 2 points are
Can you state your name, please?
Frankie Meduja, one of the co-owners of the business as well and co-applicants. The other two are the southeast fence and the gazebo. Our findings don't quite reflect the city's findings, mostly because we think by the relocation of that fence is largely due to public safety and property protection. We want that to be considered, especially with the Hawthorne footbridge construction that's planned for the future. So the current configuration leaves that 15-foot wide kind of unsupervised buffer zone between the property lines. And I think with the removal of that fence and the relocation, it would give, I guess, increasable usage to us. It's also that zone that's currently the way the fence is placed. It's not visible to our front desk and bartenders and entry points, and alternatively subject to trespassing and sleeping and illegal activity. It's just a really hard area to monitor. So I think with the planned Hawthorne Bridge Avenue footbridge coming in place, we would anticipate increased foot traffic, potential transients seeking shelter under the bridge, and that's our main concerns. Is really the property protection and safety. Let's see. Should the commission, I guess, allow that the removal of the fence, then I think it kind of makes sense also to move the gazebo along with it. Relocating the gazebo makes particularly aesthetic a sense as well, mostly because I believe the original site plan of that gazebo, in case of emergency or if there was indeed like a fire life and safety issue inside the house, that gazebo I think plans slap right in front of that exterior entrance. We believe that's what the old site plan shows. So it would really open up the space with moving gazebo along with the fence. We're okay with removing all the plastic siding. We're also okay with the full removal of that winter shelter that we had that was temporary. And so when Jay and I originally purchased the property, the gazebo was actually already on the property as well. And so those were just some other points that we wanted to add. We're also okay with not planting the trees behind the gazebo and the fence, kind of that buffer for privacy. We just thought that was it made sense to us for just privacy. But if the city doesn't want that landscaping there, that's okay with us as well. Jay, do you have anything else to add?
Nope, I think that's great. I just want to point out, just to be very clear, where the gazebo was originally placed is a direct barrier to exiting the east door egress. And so that was the primary reason we moved it south, the 14 feet or so that Michelle mentioned, to get it out of the way of the door. So at a minimum, even if the fence can't be moved, we would request the gazebo to remain in place as it is now for that reason.
Yeah, and we're okay with like I mentioned, the full removal of the shelter and the plastic signing that was mentioned in the report. So it's again, I think just from functional use and for public safety and protection of the property. I think those really heavily need to be considered with the upcoming Hawthorne Bridge crossing, and if for safety of exiting the vehicle or the door of the house.
Okay.
I think that's all we have.
Okay.
Any questions for us?
Yeah, any questions from commissioners to applicants? So just I have a question just to recap the items in this application that are related to egress, life safety, and ADA. The door replacements, the ramp, and the dormer, and potentially the location of the gazebo so that it doesn't block. Am I missing anything else that's related to safe egress or ADA compliance?
I think you got it. Just to be clear, it is 3 different exit points. There's the south facing, the east facing, and actually no, the west facing will be retained. It's not required. So yeah, I think you've covered it.
Okay.
We need to temper a window, the ramp is close enough to the existing window. Did you want to come up?
Katie, can you come up here so the microphone picks you up?
There's a. I didn't state your name. Oh, Katie Driver. There's a window that's near the ramp. And if any of those windows are too close to the ramp, then they'll need to be, the glass will have to be tempered. But the window will remain, they can just replace the glass. That's all.
Okay, thank you. And the, I could reference this in drawings, but do you guys have a knowledge right now of what elevation the footbridge will be at, directly in front of your property? Is it going to be, pretty high as it comes down to reach grade level before Hill Street, or?
We've seen the designs and it's a range and we're not sure how far it will go. And maybe that is better asked of the city to see where they are in that. But as of the last designs that the city's released publicly, it was not clear to us.
Okay, so the concern for like safety and kind of like unwanted use on your property and the fence location is related to being like potentially like under a bridge or
Yeah, and I'll add to that too, because one thing Frankie didn't mention is that one of the things we do know is the city has decided to cut off the driving access. There was a survey sent out to get public feedback on this, whether it would be a single off ramp or either on Hawthorne, off Hawthorne. And Frankie, you can correct me, but I believe the city has determined that it will be completely blocked off. That is, there will be no way to exit onto Hawthorne from the highway, nor to enter it. And that increased our concern for the proposal we're suggesting, because it creates, I don't know, do you call it a swell of lack of activity? Frankie, did you want to add to that? Am I speaking correctly?
Is Frankie still unmuted?
If not, I'm pretty sure that's the case. And
Sorry, I didn't realize I had to click a button to unmute. Yes, that is my understanding, Jay. And also to the commissioner's point, there has been a range of where that lands. So, I guess pedestrians going over the bridge will have no problem seeing the Lucas House if it lands, more in the intersection of Hill and Hawthorne, but then that leaves, quite a bit of shelter space underneath the bridge. But then, vice versa, if the bridge does land sooner, closer to our property, then they'll get kind of maybe a 30-40 degree angle looking down, and maybe there isn't quite as much sheltered space. So we have seen a range. We're not entirely sure, but to Jay's point, I think with the closure of the cars and the less traffic, and we're not sure how well lit that area is going to be. It's just really hard to monitor.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions for applicants?
Did we clarify about the satellite?
Oh.
Sorry, Katie, you can stay here.
Just wondering if is the plan to replace it and or to replicate?
My plan was to replace the whole opening, to maintain the size of the width and the height of that opening and not disturb the brick, but to replace that window. It was my best guess that it was historic. I don't know exactly. It's the most kind of quirky window left. And the divider it's kind of like nailed into the window. It's not real great, but I think the intent of like the divider's at 4'6" and it's kind of asymmetrical was what I was trying to mimic with the new side light. So I did propose to remove that window, that side light, but we could try and preserve it if that's a condition of approval.
Do you see any reason you couldn't preserve the existing one and then replicate it on the other side?
I think it's just how the doors are made. I know that a lot of them come as one unit, but they could probably do one unit that just had a side light and a door, and the other, I'm not sure if
Okay.
there's a header in there.
Because you show is the term a cripple, like a cripple wall below it, like
Yeah.
a clad.
That's what's there currently.
So you were envisioning this whole thing to come as one door with two side lights from the manufacturer?
Yeah,
But then you would apply shakes or cedar
over
siding.
it, or,
Yeah, over
Yeah.
kind of a blank space below it.
yes.
Okay, interesting.
Do you have any comments on the discussion about the door being opaque versus glass?
No, I like the idea of this. I don't think that door, it's not that one, but that 5 panel door is original, because the top panel is kind of half missing. It doesn't wonder. And yeah, it doesn't, I think it's a historic door. I don't know if it was meant for the exterior. It might mimic one of the interior ones. Maybe it got relocated. But I like the idea of keeping the upstairs one glass like it is. That French door that doesn't meet egress at the top of the stairs has is adorable. So, and then keeping the one below solid. It's hard to know without any photos, historic photos from the museum, to know what was original, but I do believe that door right there that we're looking at is original. And then I think that side light, that side light that's barely there, right there, is also historic, if I had to guess.
Okay. Is there anything happening on the interior of the building that would preclude solid versus glass for either of those doors?
I don't go on the inside all that much. I'm not sure. Not upstairs. I don't know. Frankie or Jay might know what's going on.
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking, Frankie, is there direction on the internal that could speak to what's appropriate externally, or? I mean, certainly the interior doors are all solid. The bedroom doors, but obviously that's privacy related. I can't think of any other examples. External doors are generally glass.
Yeah, I honestly can't remember. I know a long time ago we had a historic lady came over and talked. She knew something about the amount of wood panels and the doorknobs, and is able to identify age and how relevant, if they were replaced or not replaced. And I think Katie's right. I think some of this stuff is not like from the original construction, but was updated probably in the 30s or 40s. If I remember when that lady did the walkthrough of the house.
I guess to answer your question, it doesn't. I think the entry door being glass would be nice off Hawthorne. And then the other two, just based off the commission. I do think they're more, the upstairs door has 10 lights, I think. And that's what I would like the panels or the lights to match.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from commissioners?
Because I'm not sure how the Hawthorne Bridge is going to interfere with the facade on the south side. Do we know what it's gonna look like?
I mean, I think it's a big, long ramp. So where it lands to meet the slope of all users is probably closer to Hill Street than to the Parkway.
Okay.
So it's very likely that a bridge user would be looking down on the property
Okay.
from 12, 16 feet high in the air as they're coming down. It may actually add to the visibility. It's not going to be a trafficked street anymore. And it may actually add to the visibility to see it from above. Probably see over the fences and stuff like that. And
I think the landscape and the backyards would be more visible. You probably wouldn't have much view of the front of the house
Okay.
any longer. You'd be looking down, if you did, on the ramp and the front stoop, but the angle is like to cut off a lot of view from there.
well, if you're on the sidewalk, you see it the same.
Sure.
If you're on the opposite sidewalk, you see a bridge. And if you're on the bridge, you see, over the railing, probably a little bit higher up.
How low do the double row of windows on the east facade? How low do those go?
Hmm.
I can't tell from the photograph.
This is where they're shown on the submitted elevation.
Do a street view when you do.
Yeah.
Because from this photograph, it looks like you can still see them over top of the fence. So it makes me think even if the fence was moved, it'd still be visible, but I might be missing something.
Well, I think the fence, Katie, is 5 feet high, all the fences, and the windows there are kind of chest high. I'm a 6 foot man or so, so it's in the range. You'd certainly see the tops.
Very good. Not very good.
Sounds like we don't know
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay.
We can take a walk down there. Any other questions from commissioners to applicant? Nope. Okay, here, we have no commissioners online today, right?
Sean is
Oh,
on.
Sean's online. Okay. Anything from you, Sean?
No, sir. You guys asked all the questions that I had, so thank you.
Okay. Moving on, this is now the portion of the hearing where we give proponents of the application a chance to testify and present evidence. So is there anyone here to speak in support of the application? Other than the applicants themselves? Hearing none, I'll move on to any opponents. Anyone here to speak against this application? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing.
We do have online people. Do you want to ask them if they want to raise their hand?
Oh, yeah. If you are online and you're here to speak in favor or in support or in opposition to this application, please raise your hand through the Zoom button. Don't think, okay. Do I get to hit the gavel again? All right. Okay, close the public hearing. We will open it up for discussion among the commissioners, the 5 commissioners present.
I have a question for Michelle or Heidi.
Had your chance.
I know.
Okay.
But
All right.
is the sign in our scope at all, or is that outside of the historic
So-
commission?
I asked our sign staff person and she confirmed that even if the location is just moving and the sign staying the same, they still need a permit. So I don't think that's really in the scope of the Landmarks Commission.
Okay.
So I think my comments would be as far as moving the fence, if the south facade is going to be obscured by the bridge. It seems like the focus, where the visibility will be shifted around to the west side. And so I would not be opposed to moving the fence forward, even though it may perhaps obscure the historic windows. Because I don't, on the east side, because I don't think that you'll see them. I wish I had something in front of me so that I had a more clear view of that. As far as the front door, I would be in favor of glass to replicate the elements upstairs that they are replicating, and then I would also be in favor of them saving whatever historic elements they remove. The door upstairs, or even the front door, even if we don't know if it's historic or not, if there's a way for them to save it, just in case it comes from someplace, it may come from someplace on the property.
Yeah, I think I agree with your comments, Kathy. I think, allowing the fence to move forward. One of the other things that I think that I would add a condition or you know, for a detailed landscape and site drainage plan. That would then tell us what's gonna go on behind the fence. And in front of it, as the gazebo gets moved and there's blank space back there, you know, what's gonna happen. We heard discussion of not planting some trees. There are some trees dead. So what's happening in, you know, in its place? When I looked at the site plan and all I saw was a label poplars and a label ponderosa pine. If the applicant is listening, I would advise against the ponderosa pine. And I'd be very cautious about the type of poplars if used. You know, if you use the straight species Populus nigra, when you see along the rivers, it's a pretty messy tree and weak wooded as well. Same way, ponderosas are great out in the wild. Unfortunately, I live in the midst of a bunch and constantly battle pine cones and pine needles. So in a kind of a public setting, you're just going to dramatically increase your maintenance. There are other pines native as well. I mean, even just lodgepole pine is neater. So I think, you know, would like to see a detailed plan that shows what's going on, what trees are to be removed. There was language in the staff report as something that said as recommended by an arborist. If there's an arborist's report regarding the safety or issues of the existing trees that are to remain. It's unclear to me right now, you know, which ones are actually going, which ones are actually coming in. And, you know, if that doesn't have to come back to the entire board, I'm happy to review that with staff through that process as well, just to see what's going on. Yeah, I think the question of the off-ramp does, I mean, I think the east side will still be visible in part. And as you said, Andy, you know, the facade will certainly be visible from foot traffic under a lot of it depends on what sort of supports that ramp will have. You know, what is it gonna look like? What are the railings gonna look like? I think too, you know, in well, and some of this will come through building department review is on the ramp, just the location of handrails. Handrails typically go on both sides of a ramp. That means you're attaching it to the brick. On one side, what's happening in that location. So. And I think, again, I didn't see it specifically mentioned in the staff report about changing the material out in the gazebo from that plastic corrugated, I don't know if it's plastic or fiberglass material that's there, and just using more appropriate materials compatible with the building.
Okay,
I believe Jay said that they were willing to remove that.
yeah, he said that.
I understand.
Yeah, I think it's just worth codifying. So.
Agree.
Tom or Sean, you guys want to share your impressions?
Yeah, I'm glad to hear there's flexibility on the door type. I think regarding the fence, seems like there may be a compromise, given that the primary view of it will be from a raised elevation on the new bridge. And that if we could ensure that the top of fence is not higher than the bottom of the windowsill, and that might be a way to ensure that there's still visibility of those windows, but allow them to keep the fence further south. I think given that it's a non-permanent piece of the property, there might be some room for compromise there. Other than that, I'd say I agree with all the other staff recommendations.
Sean, do you have anything to share?
Yeah, I appreciate the staff's work on this. I think there's a really healthy marriage between building code requirements and preserving historic elements of the building. And my only hope really would be that in putting in the ADA ramp, that the brick itself is not interrupted with any structural penetrations. I think that if there's a will, there's a way. One can build a ramp without punching into that wall. We just don't really know what's there. So other than that, I'm good with everything, and I don't really have any opinions on the fence, to be quite honest with you. So I think I'll go with whatever the more experienced commission and staff feels is appropriate on that.
Does that, John, mean you're on the fence? Is that issue?
Ah, well done. Yes.
It
It was sitting there.
Happy fun. Okay. Okay, well, I'll share some of my impressions. First, I'm not sure why this would be a type 3 major alteration. It seems like a minor alteration to me, but I know that there's some precedent and there's some flexibility in our code, and I am glad for the opportunity to, like, we don't see type 2 or type 1. So I am glad for the opportunity to review it. But I understand that comes with some burden to the applicant. So just that's my personal feedback to staff. So given that this is a type 3 and you're here before the commission, I'd say these egress and accessibility improvements are, a trade-off. Obviously, we do detract from the front facade of a historic home by building by putting an ADA accessible ramp in there, but that is we need for it to be accessible to all users, and historic properties. It's almost become a normal architectural style of historic properties to build a ramp. I think we had a discussion in April that I missed about a ramp. Yeah, everything seems fine from those accessibility. I think that my opinion is that the doors as presented are an improvement on the existing condition, even if they are not matching exactly what may or may not be historic. I think that preserving one side light that might be historic and trying to match it with the opposite side light on the other side of the door. I'm sorry, which elevation was this? East?
East.
On the east elevation is probably not going to be a great outcome. I think it's probably better to just have a symmetric, fully built, try to replicate that, but put it in a modern door with modern, energy efficiency and operability and durability. It's really unlikely that wood windows are going to last wood windows that have lasted there 100 years are going to last another 100 years. And that's what we hope for this property. One thing I'll point out is that this property, as I've ever experienced it, has been from the yard where the food trucks are and where the beer is. So as a user, and maybe I should have disclosed this earlier that I've had beer there and listened to music, but I've really, Hawthorne Avenue as it is right now is not a very nice, street because it has fast cars coming off the parkway. And the way that this is a public facing property, unlike a lot of the applications that we get, which are private homes, this is a home, this is a building that gets used by, thousands of people a year. And they're largely using it in the whole yard of it. So in terms of the public enjoyment of architectural features that are historic of it, I say there's no difference. There's probably even a benefit to moving the fence forward on the property because more people get to see those windows. from using the you know, being a patron of the food trucks and the beer truck than from people who happen to be walking by. Although we are going to get some more, you know, users on the pedestrian footbridge. I don't have, I don't think I would recommend a condition of approval of the fence relocation. I do think some of these outbuildings, the beauty of them has, you know, we're sort of in an era where there's a lot of things that were built in COVID era and were never meant to be permanent, and they've kind of become permanent. And I am a fan of cleaning up some of these things, so such as removing the plastic cladding materials on the outside of the gazebo. I think probably dismantling the winter shelter or removing it, which looks like it was, you know, made with plywood and you know, it kind of looks like something that got built in a parking spot during COVID. I'd have higher hopes for a winter shelter on a property of this architectural significance and historic significance in our city. So I think the applicants also said they were open to not keeping the winter shelter. Did they say that?
I thought that's what she
Okay.
said.
Okay. And then, you know, I'm not nearly the expert on trees and planting that Jim is. I do think submitting a landscaping and drainage plan might be a little bit more of a burden on this applicant for this type of application than is warranted, since we're not really doing site work. You know, short of maybe moving a fence and moving a gazebo and planting a couple trees. So I would not be a fan of requiring additional submittals for, I think the site plan that's already been submitted is probably enough. That's all my opinions.
Dovetail onto something that you're saying, and because I'm relatively new on the commission, I don't know if this can be done, but if they save some of the architectural elements and then incorporate them into the gazebo, like if they were to use the windows or the doors from upstairs or the windows, is it possible, number one? Is it allowable? Is it something that, would they have to come back to us, or can it be done administratively?
I mean, is that a question for me?
I'm not sure. I mean, it's something that I would do at my house. So I'm just wondering, yes, it's a question for you.
I think they proposed to incorporate some of those elements into the gazebo, which is an existing structure. If they were just adding to it, that could be approved administratively.
Okay. But it's also an allowable use, because I know that we've required in the past that people preserve architectural elements, but really with no end date to it or no end game. And so is it possible for them to be reused or refitted?
I think yes, I do.
Yeah, I think that'd be fine. Often, things that do get removed, features wise, they put in storage somewhere in the event that they want to reuse them, or you know, put them in the attic or in the basement, you know, kind of thing, in case opinions or tastes change, or that's typically what's happened in the past that I can remember.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it worked. I think it's great when an applicant proposes it, or they follow on and they maybe get it approved administratively. I think making it a condition of approval, to me, it's only when it's really warranted by the unique architectural and historic value of the item that's being preserved
You mean to save the element?
to save it.
Okay.
Like right now, we have a cataloged pile of rocks in a county storage area right now that someday will be a facade of an old garage that we tore down to expand the court, that we allowed to tear down to expand the courthouse. That would be an example. And honestly, I don't really see anything that remarkable, an architectural element that's being removed here that I would, a 5-panel door that was probably originally an interior door. It's probably not original to the exterior. Side lights.
Yeah, and I think it's probably appropriate just to comment and encourage the applicant to find a way to reuse some of those elements where possible and or save them for archival purposes if warranted. And because the gazebo is not a historic structure. If anything, the doors and windows are. So, I don't see a requirement for that. But I think we certainly can, in our record of this hearing, encourage it. And then I did want to say, the main reason I asked, or am leaning towards a condition for a site and, detailed plan is, given all the things that go on here, what happens in the landscape can affect the visibility of all of those facades. And, I was gonna ask you, when you approach this building for use in the beer garden and whatever, do you come from the alleyway or do you come from the street?
I usually walk across the empty lot, or I come from the alleyway.
The alleyway,
Yeah.
yeah, that goes, back to one of my pet peeves about alleys being a visible point of reference for, so I mean, I'm not looking for anything, I mean, I recommend if I were, I'll just state it in the hearing to keep the landscape as simple as possible and as clean as possible and probably as low as possible to show off the brick facade. And if you need trees to shade some structure, find something appropriate. I don't think poplars or ponderosa pine are in that vein.
So this, I think, Kathy, one of the things when we say something and that we encourage this and it goes in the record, or we encourage them to, not plant poplars, plant some other species, it almost it helps staff to make an administrative approval and maybe engage one commissioner to just say like, hey, they submitted this back under this application and we can get it approved now without like a lot of, 30-day notice and all that stuff again. So I do think there's a value in putting things that we encourage in there
Okay.
that they may choose to add to their application, but then would be subsequently approved on an administrative level by Michelle or by Heidi and maybe in consultation with one or more commissioners.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But yeah, like storing a door forever with no plan to use it I'm kind of against that. Storing. I think there was one application where we said, can you please just keep the doors forever or the windows forever in some place, just so we know that they're there.
I think
But
they
to me,
did
that's not. I mean, of course they'll say yes but I just don't see the value there. I don't see how
Okay.
we're meeting our historic preservation goals by doing that. Any other discussion among commissioners? We should.
I had a quick question, if that's okay.
Yeah, Sean.
So you're talking about process, because I'm still learning too. So one of the conditions of approval talks about if a new landing and steps are intended to be constructed under the first story doors, they must be included in a subsequent application that explicitly address the details of proposals such as materials, dimensions, historic compliance. So something like that would not come to the commission again, right? That would be an administrative decision by staff as far as accepting the design of said landing. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
Yeah, yes, it would, and it wouldn't require a new application, I don't think.
Enter a building permit or something of the sort.
Yeah, building permit would be a subsequent permit, anything requiring permit. But I think they have to meet this hurdle first before they can submit for a building permit.
I think if they can submit additional details as a condition, then we can include them. in
Yeah.
This approval.
Yeah,
Cool, thank you.
okay. So I think let's start with the staff conditions of approval. And let's go through them one by one and take a straw poll on what we want to keep or not keep. Michelle, you should give us the numbers on these. Where's the first one?
Oh, they're all listed
all
at the
back.
end.
Oh, they're all in the back. Okay, thank you.
And numbered.
Okay, thank you.
And they're numbered.
Oh, they are numbered. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you, Michelle. All right. Okay, so condition one, is kind of standard. I think it's non-controversial. Any modification that arises during construction. Condition two is non-controversial. Condition three about additional documentation of how the ramp will be structurally erected and fixed without damage to the existing masonry. Sean brought that up. Are we okay with keeping that in? Seems
Yes.
okay. Anyone just speak in opposition if you want something removed. Okay, number four, prior to the issuance of the building permit, final plan set shows accurate scope of work. That's non-controversial in my opinion. Five, if a new landing and steps are to be constructed, that must be included in subsequent application. Again, non-controversial. Six, prior to issuance of the building permit, the original side light is proposed to be, if the original side light is proposed to be replaced, the applicant must provide additional documentation to demonstrate why repair and rehabilitation are not reasonable options.
We could say, or propose a new door and side light that replicates existing condition.
I mean, I think that's what the application is. So I think that's equivalent to just removing that.
Yeah, the question of condition is really, justifying why. And
Yeah.
I don't know,
I
is,
mean, if it's in pristine condition, do we want them to keep it? That's the question.
I feel like going back to your statement, that a good solid door, that's well constructed, that replicates that architectural element, I think is enough.
some of it
We
may
need
be,
to see specs though.
I mean, not really clear on the dimensions of the door. Is it, as I think I asked earlier, I mean, because looking at the pictures, one of the lights on the side looks wider than the light on the right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but they widen the door and then
Right.
they become parallel, but
Yeah.
is the door, I mean, I guess the question, is the door then narrower than an 88 required?
the existing door, I believe, is. Yeah, I think that's what they presented.
I think you had a good point though about if one is original and then the other one's a replica, they're probably not gonna match and it'd just be a worse outcome than replacing both of them. But I think from the application, Michelle wasn't sure if they were proposing to remove them or keep them. So I think part of this condition was about clarifying that.
I think we learned that from the applicant today, right? That they are planned to be replaced.
Yeah.
Well, it may be sufficient then for the applicant to address this criteria just by including something in the record that says that's what they're gonna do.
Okay, so I'm gonna propose that we replace 6. Well, I think 7 kind of covers this, like this is exactly what we're gonna do. We're gonna show us a cut sheet of the door with side light that you intend to provide. Or maybe it's a door with two tall windows. And, yeah, so staff can confirm its compatibility with like
Yeah.
the existing, the historic sidelight appearance.
I'd be willing to bet that it's code-driven and it has to be replaced. So if the commission's good going forward with what you just said, I think that's the best, probably the most reasonable solution.
Okay, so I'm proposing we remove 6 and keep 7.
Right, 6, yeah. It's
Okay.
seemed like 7 was
All
covered.
right. 8, so prior to the issuance of building permit, the applicant must provide manufactured drawings. That's non-controversial. 9, prior to final planning inspection, front yard landscaping must be improved to increase the visibility of the double row of windows, reduce the spread of cheatgrass, and generally upgrade the aesthetics of the area of the property.
Is the front yard the south side?
South side is the front yard, yes.
Okay.
I would say, you know, would possibly modify that condition. And just, you know, prior to final planning inspection, landscape, you know, a landscape plan. Or landscaping must be demonstrated. That would allow staff to make that determination with the assistance of commissioner. Because it would, you know, if you change that prior to the final planning inspection, landscape must be improved to increase the visibility of double row of windows and other site features.
So my pause here, Jim, is
Yeah.
that okay, so they've proposed to plant 3 trees. They've not proposed to like change other aspects of the landscaping of the property. We don't have the jurisdiction as the Landmarks Commission to say you got to mow down the cheatgrass in front of your, like, we have the jurisdiction to say that landscape elements must be compatible with the historic character or whatever the Bend Development Code says. But we can't make an applicant do something that's not scope proposed.
Yeah, no, I agree, but I would argue on the other side of that cheatgrass is not a historic material. And is not part of the, you know, I mean, it probably wasn't cheatgrass when this house was built. It might have been lawn, it might have been something else, it could, you know. And we are concerned with the visibility and appearance of structures. And landscape affects that visibility and appearance in dramatic ways. I think one of the earlier photos of the historic showed, this goes back to a comment I made, it was a bunch of pines obscuring the front. It was one of the
Yeah,
photos.
that was the museum's photo of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those were probably mugo pine that were planted ages ago and have now become, rather than the short shrub that people think it is
Yeah.
now a dominating tree. And I think the site is simple. A lot of their landscape is paved features and decks and gazebo. I mean, there's a ramp that's gonna come across the south face. At least half of that landscape is gonna go. So what's happening in its place? We're talking about moving the fence forward. What happened, you know, geez, that's gonna destroy a lot of cheatgrass. Or move it into the backyard. So, you know, we're talking about some changes to the site plan. And it's also just, I mean, I think that's why I asked, some of this, you know, may come up during building review, like the storm drainage. Looks like right now everything just sheds off the roof onto the landscape. But I think really, we heard the applicant or talk about, okay, trees that were proposed on a plan that was submitted with the application are going to be removed, are not going to be planted, but there are other trees that exist on the site that are dead. And it was stated in the site plan, they're going to be removed. So what's happening in that? And I think that warrants a look, at least by staff, at some point. I'm not asking that it comes back to the commission at this point, but I think it's worthy of review, since it will significantly affect the appearance of the structure.
So to clarify, you're just looking for a landscape.
Well,
Yeah, a landscape site plan, it could be a revision of the drawing that's up there. Again, it was discussed that the trees between the gazebo and the fence would be removed for visibility. So there's a change there that we're already recommending in terms of landscape. So I think it just behooves us to have that as part of the record in any approval of the application.
okay, so just as a recap, the landscape, in 10.20.130, the design review criteria for landscape B says that landscape, and then it says parentheses, visible from adjacent public street. Alterations in new development shall incorporate traditional landscape elements evident in the historic properties in the surrounding areas, such as grass, trees, shrubs, and picket fences as applicable. And 2, inappropriate landscape treatments such as berms and extensive cover inconsistent with the historic landscaping of the property are prohibited. To me, we're limited by alterations and new development shall incorporate. I don't think we have the ability to tell maybe an overgrown property that is getting some ramps and stuff to say, tear out all the cheatgrass, put in new landscaping, give us a landscape plan. I don't think that we can put that burden onto an applicant that's not proposing a landscaping already. But I do think we could put a condition of approval that said, if landscaping is proposed, then you shall submit a landscape plan, drainage plan, and the landscaping shall be proportioned from native species and shall accommodate, shall not impede on the visibility of the architecture of the house.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but quite frankly, we have a proposed landscape that has been submitted. It says new popular trees, new ponderosa pine. We've heard voiced an
Okay.
alteration of that by removal of the poplars, and yet there's still a proposal to remove pines and remove other trees. So there has been a proposal to modify the landscape.
Okay,
So I would say it's in our best interest in preserving the appearance of the house and property, because properties are of historic value as well, that we see something that says this is what you're going to do with the site. If they propose to manage cheatgrass,
Okay.
that's probably something for the building bureau, since it's an invasive species and is, frowned upon by other means. And I would think it would benefit the owners and applicants themselves to do something about that. But I think asking for a more detailed site plan, given the changes that we're talking about, and some more specifics about the landscape is not out of question,
okay,
particularly if
So
that's
some-
something that they can be reviewed at a staff level.
okay. So some version of condition 9 we keep in. So if you could work on the wording that you would want to see. Does anyone else have is everyone else in agreement on that?
Mhm.
Okay, Sean. Speak up if you're not in agreement, I guess.
I'm just not sure what jurisdiction we have over that. I like the idea of it. I'm just gonna have to read through the code to see where we stand on that. And I do know that there are other city departments that regulate things like noxious weeds and invasive species. And they have their own processes as well. So I don't want to use the phrase "I'm on the fence again," but I'm just not sure how much jurisdiction we have.
Yeah. Thanks for pointing out that there are a lot of new plantings in the site plan.
I think Sean doesn't want to dive into the weeds on this.
Yeah. Yeah. Happy Father's Day, everyone.
Wish I was there to high five you, man. That was great.
Okay, looking at condition 10, prior to issuance, the applicant must relocate the gazebo north to setback behind the fence. I'll say that my opinion is the gazebo's location. Well, when we said the gazebo moving north in its previously approved location was impeding an egress point, where it's proposed to be moved further south is kind of contingent upon the fence being moved further south. My opinion is that the best condition to put here would be to remove incompatible non-historic materials from the gazebo. And not have any other condition around the gazebo. Does anyone else have a differing opinion or something to add to that? Tom, Jim?
No, I agree with it. I mean, it actually eliminates the condition I drafted
Okay,
as well.
okay.
So,
So let's just kind of say 10 is removed and replaced with remove incompatible material from gazebo. To bring it back into the conforming,
mhm.
it was previously approved.
It was existing.
It was existing, okay, it was previously tolerated.
It was previously recognized.
So the modification of adding the plastic onto it was the non-approved thing that we want to reverse.
And you're saying, and not be required to move it.
I mean, I personally don't have an opinion about them moving it to where they propose it to be moved. I think it is proposed to be, no, it's proposed to remain in its current location, right, Michelle?
No, it's supposed to move.
It's proposed to be moved south, okay. I don't think that needs to be a condition in my opinion, but
Yeah, no, I don't.
okay.
I wonder, what are the windows that look out at the gazebo? Are they ground floor public spaces? Are they, rooms rented in the facility?
Yeah, I'm not sure that's salient
Yeah.
to,
No, I think, I'd leave it up to the applicant at that point
Okay.
if they decide to move it. But I wouldn't necessarily, I would agree, I would not require it to be moved.
yeah.
Can I just point out one
Yeah.
thing, that the staff recommendation also includes recommending the denial of that, so we want to strike that if you,
We're
on the bottom
10.
of page 30.
yeah, on bottom of page.
It just as that we're gonna include that in the approval instead. The last sentence of that.
Okay, so if it's not a condition of approval, then we don't need to, we can approve it with some conditions that we don't include. So yeah, staff recommendation is for the commission, and yeah, so I think if we just don't say anything about it, then it's approved de facto. We've also not said anything about the fence relocation. Is that in I don't think that was in one of your 12 conditions.
No.
Okay, so are we also okay about being mute on the proposed fence being moved? I mean, I shared my opinion about how this place is experienced and who's likely to see the windows. But I could see another opinion from others.
I would support stating that the top of the fence is to be no higher than the bottom of the windowsills,
Okay,
the double row of windows.
okay. We'll make this, our numbering is gonna be way off, so let's just make this part of the new 10. So they've only proposed to relocate the fence. They've not proposed to build a new fence. Suppose they could chop off the fence if it is too tall.
I mean, yeah, the current fence to me looks like it's already below this hill, but I just want to,
It does appear that way in photos that we have from the front. So
It looks like it's.
and if they were gonna build a new fence, they'd have to submit a new application. So I think putting no condition of approval around the fence is the approval as they've applied to move it south to the
okay,
corner of the building.
yeah, that's fine with me.
And it is low. Yeah, it is. I mean,
Yeah.
you can see it pretty well there. Yeah, street users on Hawthorne are going to be seeing this from an elevated position anyway in the future bridge scenario. Okay. So 11, sign permit. We said this is outside of our jurisdiction anyway, so we'll might as well just keep. And then 12 is non-controversial. Any other conditions that we haven't discussed that we want to add to this list?
I just want to make sure we're clear on the doors. Like if we're saying they can change to be glass.
They can change from what they're proposed.
From what's in the application that we're clear that we're giving that flexibility.
Okay, let's add that to something that we already have.
That'd be the current 7,
Yeah,
The current 7.
which is now 6, but current 7. Because they asking for additional documentation.
Is there an exterior door they're proposing that doesn't have Munson glass lights?
I think the second floor,
There's a solid.
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was okay.
I just want to make sure if we approve the application and we don't state that that can change, then
Okay,
it might not be clear.
So like, let's add to 7 that second floor. This is the north elevation, right?
This is the west.
Okay, man. Sorry about that. Second floor west elevation door can be changed to glass at the applicant's a compatible glass light door at the applicant's discretion.
Yep.
We're not going to make them change it to glass, but if they want to. I don't want to find out that there's some like other code reason why it can't be glass.
Is it possible just to say that we give them the discretion to decide to
Yeah.
put glass on any of the 3 doors that are going to be changed?
They've proposed the other 2 doors do have glass.
But
Right?
we don't have a cut list, so
Yeah, it's true. This is to be finalized by staff.
Yeah, the
I
next-
think when they're submitted. Yeah.
The next condition, existing aid does ask for manufacturer's sheets.
Yeah,
on
cut
doors.
sheets and stuff, yeah.
So that should come back.
And I would just add, Kathy, what Kathy expressed earlier about making a recommendation that any historic materials that have been removed, we would encourage them to preserve and reuse.
yes.
And like we could add that to 12. So we'll say the commission encourages reuse of materials, historic materials,
Yeah, because there are a few doors there.
removed during this process. But it's not a requirement. Okay,
If the backside of that one door were flat, you could use it as a table in the gazebo.
right, right. Can always put my beer on it. Any other topics that we want to cover in conditions of approval before make a motion? Okay, I think I might have the best notes, so I'm going to make the motion. All right, get ready for this, Michelle. Okay. I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the application as presented. With the staff recommendation, conditions of approval, items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, and 11 unchanged from staff. Did you get that?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9.
And 11.
Unchanged.
Unchanged from what staff had said. We will remove a condition 6 from staff. Condition 7, we will keep what staff listed, and we will add the recommendation that the second floor west elevation door may be changed to a glass light window compatible with the other doors proposed at the applicant's discretion. We are going to replace item 10. That we will, I'm sorry, I forgot 9. I'm sorry. We're going to revise 9 with so we're going to keep what 9 has in there and submit landscape drawings showing for staff approval. What was the other thing you wanted in 9, Jim?
Submit a revised site plan that identifies their proposed landscape that supports the visibility of the building historic structure.
Okay. Is that clear enough for 9, Michelle?
Submit a revised site plan that identifies proposed landscaping that, say it again, Jim?
Supports the visibility of the historic structures on site.
Got it.
Item 10, we're going to replace with applicant shall remove incompatible materials from the existing gazebo that were not approved to be installed. Specifically the corrugated clear plastic siding. Do we want to make them tear down the winter and remove the what do we call it, the winter shelter?
Yes. That's condition 2,
I'm sorry.
unless you want to not give them the
Yeah.
option.
That is in condition 2. If they wanted to replace it or improve it in some way, I think we'd be open to that. Put some nice cedar siding on the plywood. Okay, so that's 10. And then adding to item 12. So what staff has put, and then we want to say that the commission encourages the reuse of historic materials removed during this process so that they could be reused in the future. But it is not a condition of approval. So.
Our condition
Okay.
is to encourage.
Our condition is to encourage. Yeah, we've made this condition. We encourage it. As we've spelled this out, I make a motion that we approve the application with the conditions of approval as we have discussed and as has been recorded by Michelle. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Tom, second. Any discussion? Okay, I'm going to call a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Sean?
Right.
Okay, That is there's no one else, so motion carries. Thank you, applicants. All right, we survived it. Moving on to the next item in the agenda. Where am I? Review and discussion of Franklin Avenue undercrossing and overpassing corridor improvements. This is, we have applicants here or are they applicants?
Yeah,
You have
this is
staff?
my agenda item. I've been working, talking with Justin today, and he's gonna give a presentation and give update on this letter from the State Historic Preservation Office and the recommendation document that Dal created regarding the Franklin Avenue undercrossing, overcrossing recommendations that they're working on. So this is really an education item to bring us up to speed of what's going on, and I asked Justin Kathleen to join the meeting, and then we could promote them to who needs to be promoted?
Sorry, I'm reconnecting. I
Okay,
about lost
Justin.
my battery and.
Mason. Oh,
You're reconnected here.
okay. Thank you.
Too, if you wanted to, but you might have more.
Okay, well, yeah, if you could introduce yourself and
Yeah, so I'm Todd Johnson, senior engineer with City of Bend, on the engineering side, working these midtown projects. Yeah, probably have some answers on Hawthorne for you, but it's all right. It's kicking off KPFF. I don't think they yeah, they're starting soon.
Okay.
Are you gonna get a message saying to come back in?
Send it to Justin. I see it on mine.
Okay.
And Justin, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm, oh, there it is. Join this panel.
Thanks,
I'm
Leslie.
Justin Mason with Dow. We are the design engineers on the Midtown Crossing Progressive Design Build Project, which includes the Franklin undercrossing. And that's what we're here to talk about tonight.
Okay.
Let me get the slideshow up and I will let Bob kick off.
And we may not know the best so yeah, I guess just background right now, we've submitted a recommendation for historic eligibility on the undercrossing. It was accepted by SHPO, so it is officially now a what's the word I'm looking for?
The concurrence.
Yeah.
They've concurred with our assessment that it is a historic feature. Eligible. Thank you.
Yeah, there we
That's
go.
it.
And so then when we're proposing actions on it, getting a letter or some sort of concurrence from the Landmark Commission. So we present, as we take this to SHPO and say, this is what we're preparing to do here.
Okay.
The consulting with our
Okay.
local group. That's ultimately what we're looking for.
All right. Excellent.
So tonight is just so I understand what's going on, just tonight is the overview, the project and generalities. But as you move forward through the project, you'd like some guidance or recommendations from the commission
And where we currently are right now, we have a work session with council tomorrow prior to the city council general meeting. Need to talk through, just really getting concurrence that this is the correct path that we're going down on design.
Okay,
That walls will be replaced, etc. So.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, context, I don't know if we did the Greenwood project, which everyone's extremely thrilled with. We are, Second Street is part of the core area, as part of Midtown. That's actually wrapping up construction. We have a party on Tuesday. It's Tuesday, 24th. Hawthorne Bridge is being designed by ODOT. Federal funding came into play, so they're designing and constructing. And then we are still, designing Franklin Avenue. We're currently at like between 30 and 60%.
Yeah, we're right at 60%,
Okay.
getting ready to submit that. So yeah, so I can jump in. The Franklin portion of this project runs from Harriman, of our project, Harriman to Fifth Street. And it's a multimodal project improvement to improve sidewalks, bike lanes. And a portion of that is the undercrossing of ODOT and Burlington Northern right of way. As we got into this project, it was quickly understood that that was likely a historical feature. It was actually, I'll jump here. It had been identified on the Oregon Historical Site database. It was in there, but it was not individually evaluated and identified as a historical feature. It was part of a thematic grouping. I'm going to do my best. I'm not a cultural or historical person. She's not here tonight, so I'm going to do my best. So as part of our project, we were asked to look at this, evaluate the undercrossing, research it. And so we prepared the report. You have that. That was submitted to SHPO with the recommendation that it was ineligible, since it was part of the work progress administration resource, the WPA. There have been improvements to the undercrossing when the city put the Division Street Bridge in 1979. That changed the railing that's on the west side of the project. So that was all identified and submitted to SHPO. They supported the recommendation that it be eligible under criteria A and C. I do not have the definitions of those in front of me. I apologize. And then you'll see I quoted a little piece about the 1979 road overpass and the improvements that were done with that and updates. That while it's not part of the original, it still has historic integrity of significance to deal with. Here's just some pictures kind of working west to east of the existing conditions out there. You can see the railing on the west end is in quite a bit better shape than that's on the east side of the undercrossing. The west is what was replaced in 1979. The railing and light standards on the east side appear to be original.
And we did in the SHPO report too, that railing is a feature component of the bridge, so they're not really separate entities.
Yeah.
Despite it extending 100 feet to the east of the actual undercrossing.
That's both north and south of Franklin.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. It's on, both sides. Something that's not pictured here too well are the retaining walls, the rock facades that are on the retaining on both sides of the undercrossing, north and south. Let me see if I can shrink this.
And it's certainly, the retaining walls are more prominent on the west side of the undercrossing than the east, which is a natural rock. So.
Yep.
Yeah, our current design right now, we're looking at potentially touching 3 of the 4 walls that are currently at the undercrossing. There's a little more, one of the key components of this feature, like we heard a lot from the community about the feeling of that tunnel being unsafe, the sight distance into it. So we're trying to improve, rather than there kind of being a hump on the sidewalk and you can't really see into those tunnels, we're trying to make a lot more like clear visibility into those tunnels. So you can see if it's comfortable. We want to improve lighting in that condition as well. Some of the other things we're doing concurrent to just the flooding issues that have occurred. So we're trying to add in some storm features. We're getting the water line, which which currently kind of jogs north under the parkway, and then E&J Carpets, INJ Carpets?
INJ.
INJ. It's right straddling their property line, so we'd be proposing putting the water line actually in the road at Franklin, which would make it a lot easier maintenance for city staff as well. One of the directions we got from council was to create uphill climbing lanes to kind of help with traffic flow and improve bicycle safety. So that kind of gets in when we're talking about changing those retaining walls. It's pushing them either to the north or to the south, but it's building additional retaining walls too in some instances where we would need to do that. Yeah, generally I think, yeah, 8-foot sidewalks. Yeah, generally that covers. Anything I missed?
I don't think so. No, I think you hit it, you know, it's, the other, I guess the other thing, this is not historic, but working with ODOT to remove
Yeah, the access between the parkway and on the south
on the
side.
south side, I don't know.
It's currently closed. They actually put chain link fencing, but it goes from the parkway to that south undercrossing.
That kind of goes to that safe feel when you're walking. I don't know if anybody's walked under there. It's it's interesting at times, but yeah, I think the big point of this, yeah, are widening the sidewalks, regrading to make it a much more walkable and safer feeling, and then the climbing bike lanes are the big things, which require us touching the 3 quadrants. The southwest quadrant, we're not planning on touching.
Is there scope inside the tunnels, the walkway tunnels?
No,
Okay, no paving at all?
no paving, no.
Okay.
That would just be the sidewalk there. Well, sorry.
Yeah.
In the actual undercrossing, we are moving, so the current low point of the road is it's at kind of the very east end of the rail undercrossing, and we're trying to move it about 10 feet to just get it out of the sag of the rail so we can put an inlet where it's not kind of covered by the rail line.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the only other improvements that are planned right now specifically is relocating the water line in the roadway under the undercrossing. But yeah, the chain link fence is likely to stay for now.
You talked about going to 8-foot sidewalks, but not underneath the
Not under
undercrossing.
the
I
undercrossing.
think
Yeah,
that's the
we're
part
not
that
touching
scares
the
people
bridges.
most.
Yeah, we're
Being
not.
between the chain link and the wall.
Yeah, we can't, unfortunately, like the cost is just prohibitive for us to even like try to touch the actual tunnels themselves.
Yeah, they did a feasibility study of that, and it was,
In the 20.
I mean, there were a lot of dollar signs on the presentation. Yeah, it's like 4.
I mean, it would
It's
be
like I
us,
can't
it would
afford
be
to-
us functionally rebuilding
Yeah,
both bridges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the I'm sorry, maybe you're gonna get here when you move the retaining wall on the west side of the bridge on the north side of Franklin. You rebuild a retaining wall.
Yeah, so I can, whichever. I mean, the direction right now that we are taking is, again, we're touching 3 of the 4 quadrants. The plan would be to go back and try and match what is gonna be remaining in that southwest quadrant. So trying to use same materials for the rock wall fascia. Trying to use a similar concrete precast railing that was done in 1979. We will maybe have to do some adjustments. We're looking at current fall standards and codes that are required and if they meet it, but the overall aesthetics would be to match that 1 quadrant that's going to be remaining on the other 3 corners.
So existing is cast in place and you proposed it as precast?
The railing.
Yeah, the railing.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell. It looks like what's on the west side that was done in 79 might be precast with cast in place columns. These larger columns. It's similar to what was done on the Veterans Memorial Bridge. Similar method that was done there. We would anticipate would be done here. So the sections would be precast where they'd have good control of that. And then brought over, and then the large columns in between the precast sections would be cast in place.
Yeah.
Um,
Is it immediately on the other side of the retaining wall? Is that gonna remain like sort of a like lightly used roadway, or is it gonna be like the multimodal path in city right away?
In terms of that frontage road you're asking?
Yeah, that little frontage road, yeah.
That generally stays. We still just the need to provide emergency access into there. I've seen overdoses happening in that tunnel and
Yeah.
the need to get an ambulance there.
Yeah.
Generally, we're keeping, I think maybe one distinction is maybe the access of a vehicle. If you look on the west end, the access of a vehicle, we're pushing that wall a little further west.
Yeah.
Coming down from the
Oh, this
parkway
way.
as well.
yeah,
So there's a little bit less vehicle access, maybe a slightly further that someone would need to walk to get into those tunnels from a vehicle, but generally keeping those the same. And especially on the
So-
south side, it's not changing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'd be wondering if you're gonna go to put a replica railing in there and code's gonna tell you it needs to be 3 feet tall or something,
right.
which would really be a very different, I think that's a risk and
One of the ways we could address that is the wall maybe appears higher from the roadway perspective and from the user perspective, pedestrian, maybe it's set down.
yeah, I think if we had like your rock facade wall, the precast portion of it, like, I think if we could match that, and so that the high side experience, if it needed to be 3 feet tall, then it could still be 3 feet tall, but we're not trying to like elongate this.
Yeah.
This precast.
Yeah,
Lifting the bells too.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can see these are some of the drawings our structural engineers have been pulling together, and they have identified that there is. We will likely need to go just a little bit taller, and where they are right now, and this is obviously we're still early in this. But it would be building a curb.
Yeah.
You can see right there, so the railing itself would still be proportioned the same.
Yeah.
But it would be sitting on a curb to get that elevation, get that height.
okay.
Can we go back to, you said an 8-foot sidewalk, climbing bike lane, and I guess I'm not sure what you mean by a climbing bike lane.
Yeah, so one of the requests we got from council was just as the users coming through that tunnel, a bike user, they go very slow uphill. So they slow down traffic. It's just unsafe. So it was push those walls further away from the roadway and make space, make that 5 feet for a bicycle lane to be out of the roadway. And so that's what the intent of the climbing bike lane is.
Yeah.
Got it.
So on this drawing, this darker gray is where that wall would move back
And
and
it's-
create a bike lane.
And it's grade separated, so there is a curb, so the bike lane's higher than the roadway.
Oh, great, okay.
Do you see any impact to that former Les Schwab building in the southeast corner?
Dowell's also doing the design on that. We've been coordinating with them in terms of right-of-way dedication, et cetera. There's utility challenges too.
Yeah, we're working closely with that property owner, and I think their intent is that building will be removed. That's not part of this project, but our project will impact that building with right-of-way acquisition or dedication that property needs to provide to the city to develop. And with that, I think the intent is that building would be removed before we get there.
Yeah, that's certainly the site plans that were submitted.
Yeah.
I think that project got put on hold for interest rate reasons or something, but
Yeah. I talked with the project manager on the engineering side of that, and I talked to him daily, and
Yeah.
they're aware of the need there.
And the driveway is kind of the extension of First Street to get to that.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a whole, I mean, discussions of whether it's like a one or for.
Yeah.
I mean, our on the public side, our responsibility is potentially building that frontage, although the development agreement's written very like. What would be like option, it's like,
Yeah.
if the city builds this, then you don't have to do it, otherwise you do. And then we're also bringing water, I think we're bringing the water line to the property line.
Okay. So is the retaining wall on the east side is kind of sloping right now. Is
Yeah, it'd
it,
be
is it
vertical.
proposed to be vertical? Yeah, it's to recapture that.
Give us more space, allow for, because that's an issue with the sight distance of those tunnels, right? Like the sidewalks are pushed far to the north and the south of where those tunnels are.
Right.
So trying to align those better.
Yeah. I mean, I usually feel safer when I bike like through the tunnel, but I kind of hope that no one's there. And then I find out when it's too late that someone's there and they're doing whatever. And
I feel safer on the pedestrians. Well, that's fine.
yeah, on the sidewalk.
Mhm.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
Maybe with a climbing lane though.
So again, this is all subject to kind of where council, where bond funds are spent.
Sure. Yeah, excellent.
Andy, I just have a couple. As a staff planner, I appreciate you coming and bringing this report to the commission and to staff as well. That's great. So much of it's deteriorating. Those pictures are so sad to see in the report. But I get calls and questions about stuff like when are the light poles going to be replaced on the other side? And I think, as we go forward, it would be really helpful to know like what's being restored, what's being, what's changing, anything you can provide for us as the public front when I do get questions, that'd be helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah, lighting's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's in, if you look at the third picture from the top right, there's that concrete cast lighting
Mhm.
column, and they have them on the 3rd Street undercrossing too.
Mhm.
What we're proposing is using the cast iron features that are on the west side of the undercrossing and make that consistent
Okay.
at all corners.
Oh, okay. So removal of that,
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the crumbling railing.
okay.
Well. I know
So
we
if you
got-
have any existing drawings or plans that you could share,
Mm,
that, kind of show what's being touched, what's not, that would be helpful.
And I mean, we're trying to also nail down costs too, and just an understanding of, what is the scope of work?
Mhm.
What is going to kind of fly with the historic nature of this corridor.
Right.
While trying to also, I mean, we're trying to pinch pennies too, and we're going to council tomorrow and saying we have a $2-something million, deficit right now with what we're showing. A contingency might narrow, or our project costs get a little more refined.
Okay, well, I say I'm in support of what you're showing. Don't want to see those railings elongated. I think it's really reasonable that like concrete, the original railings like that, they look better when they're preserved and replaced, and there's always going to be something that crashes into them over time if it's a transportation structure. So I don't think preserving them is warranted based on their condition. So any other thing else from commissioners?
No.
I think we'd be happy to draft a letter in support to your do we
Can I have something to say?
yeah, sure.
I'm here because of this.
Oh, sure, thanks.
And
Can you-
Talk, Todd, I'm Rod.
Can you say your full name, please?
I'm Rod Hunt,
Rod Hunt.
property owner at 123 Northwest Franklin Avenue,
Okay,
which is, it's this lovely view of the undercrossing. And if you don't mind, I'm gonna point out, he was talking about the wall. If you're not, this is a picture of the wall, which they don't have shown, which I got off their report. But it's all the it's all this, like the old stone church. It's all this rock, and this is what the railing sits on top of. And so what they're talking about doing, which makes little or no sense to me, because I'm like right here, is tearing that wall all the way down for this bike lane. In my argument or my thought, and there's also 2 lamp posts. That's my history of where I ended up where I'm at is when I go from 3rd Street and go underneath from the east side. When I come up, there's these 2 beautiful walls and the railings and those lamp posts at the end of that. And that takes me into Old Town. And that to me is landmark. So I don't agree with removing that wall because they'll never be able to replace it. I don't know what that photo was that they had. I hadn't seen that one. But I also disagree with configuration of what they're trying to do with Hill Street. They're trying to make that a left-hand lane coming south on Hill Street to go underneath the overpass, and you can't see down there, and just moving that and putting a bike lane coming up, but I don't think is the right idea. I sit here and watch this stuff all day long because I live here. The lampposts, like I say, I think, and if they take it out and they don't want it, I do. Let's put it that way. I'll put it in front of my place. It's one, there's the 2. There's this one here would have to come out completely. And then that one will stay. But what's interesting is not too far away from this intersection, there's going to be a multi-million-dollar bridge for bicycles and pedestrians. So trying to reconfigure this when the bike paths are just a couple of blocks away to take you over without a single car doesn't make any sense to me. So anyway, I like the landmark value of it. And I don't agree with what's going on. I don't know where they got that proposed wall picture from, but I mean, I know they have to build it. I know it's not cheap to do what they're talking about. So, and I'm also trying to help them or discuss what's happening between Hill Street and Harriman, because that's where I'm at. And I've got my building's a historic building. I work with Heidi. I'm right next to the old stone church. And across from that's another building. So, I'd love to keep it looking the same way as much as possible. And why they're trying to deal with a block between Harriman, I don't understand what they're doing. And we've looked over many things and I've given my suggestions. I'm just here to share with you guys my opinion.
Okay, thank you, Rod.
You bet.
So, sounds like you're a fan of the value engineering of the retaining wall, value engineering out the retaining walls. Yeah, I think that this is probably proposed to be a concrete retaining wall with a stone facade. I don't know if the original is actually stacked stone. If it's, depending on how old it is, it could be just stacked stone, but there would be a, somewhat noticeable difference maybe.
Yeah, that proposed wall example is from Pioneer Park over on Portland Avenue. That when we put that ramp in, that was the.
Yeah, so that's a modern,
So
that's
it was just
modern
an
construction.
example of
Yeah, and then the light post
Yeah.
that you're not planning to change on the south side, you're planning to reuse the light post on the north side?
That would be the intention unless there's some reason why we couldn't salvage it. I think we'd be trying to match what those are, and that might be a challenge to source, but it's from 1979, right? So
Yeah, it's not WPA lamppost. But yeah, that's heard, Rod. I mean, I'm I own 2 properties in the historic district myself, and I value it as you do. So,
And what, I mean, recognizing the location, the context of this undercrossing to kind of Old Bend. I mean, we on the project side submitted this, like, it was indeterminate on the kind of historic status of it, and we submitted it, like, we understand there's architectural, historic significance, and we're trying to, ensure that all the proper steps are taken and that what we end up with out there kind of
Sure.
matches the vision of Old Town.
sure. Okay. Well,
Timing too.
all right.
Thank you guys.
I think, yeah, thank you, Todd and Justin. Okay, we're gonna just,
Good night.
yeah, thanks for coming. Thanks for listening to us talk about fences and stuff. Yeah, cheap grass. You have any dad jokes to leave us with?
You're good.
Okay, item 4 on the agenda is the approval of the April 15th draft minutes. Yeah, I apologize. I was not able to be here, so I would propose somebody else make a motion to approve the draft minutes.
I so move.
We have a motion from Jim Figursky to approve the draft minutes from the April 15th meeting. Do we have a second?
I will second that motion.
Okay, Tom Schmidt seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And I will abstain. Okay. Minutes are approved. Okay. And any reports, communications, reports from landmarks commissioners? Anything you want to sound off on? Anything else from staff?
If you don't have anything, I know that our last grant, we worked on rewriting the code and this grant, we have some funds to try to do to facilitate public hearings for that. So that's coming up. But can I just revisit with you all skylights and metal roofing? I mean, it's just all these new concerns have come up with a fire hazard. So people are like, well, can I replace my roof with metal roofing? Can I put some skylights in? And I know we've done skylight, we as the commission have approved skylights because it's not a permanent feature that can be taken out and shingled. Is this something I don't know, do you have any feelings or any things about the metal roofing? I know we've approved metal roofing that's like pretty shallow. It's not an historic material that was typical in the historic districts, but it seems like it's
On residential.
on residential.
Yeah.
Well, I imagine many of the houses probably had cedar roofs, right?
Mhm.
So
And that's.
So
here
there
are-
is
Right. Mhm.
asphalt shingles
Right.
composite.
the asphalt's just a replica, and not a very accurate one anyway. So
Right.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I understand, but yeah, the pressure of fire and people worried about fire, I think a lot of it would depend on, what is the structure being proposed? Is it,
Okay, the details.
yeah, the detail, is it non-contributing, contributing? Are there metal substitutes like metal shingles that might look just like there are ceramic shingles? And there are other options. You put a tin or a copper roof on some structure and that might be historic. Depends on what the structure was and what its
That's-
purpose is. So,
Okay.
it's, yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
I can't say that I'm adamantly opposed. I'm
Mm-hmm.
skeptical.
Okay. That's good.
But many people wouldn't even get a permit to re-roof, right? So,
Currently, you do need one.
oh, you do. Okay.
Mhm.
For any roof or just?
Yes, any roof. I believe so. But is that correct, Sean?
That is correct.
Yeah.
My thoughts on that would, those people that have those concerns, particularly within the historic district, because that's the context that we're
Yes.
speaking about right now, I would certainly recommend they talk to Melissa Steele at the fire department, because the research that I've done is that the roofing material itself, unless it's wood, is probably not the most important part of fire prevention and fire spread on a house. There are pretty
Okay.
important eave openings, things like that. And I've only seen a couple metal roofs in the historic district or outside the historic district on some very old homes that were copper or things of that sort that looked beautiful. But I can't personally picture a modern metal roof on a historic home looking natural. And that may not be the best
True.
solution for them, and it may not be the most cost-effective solution for them either. So
Right.
I'd certainly recommend have them talk to fire.
Okay, thank you. That's fairly helpful. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, generally, I think it's a fairly incompatible. We could
Mhm.
take it on a case by case
Yeah.
basis, but we have a really notable appearance difference between a standing seam metal roof compared to a shingled roof that is, even though it was it's asphalt shingles,
Yeah.
and it
Would
looks
just
different
stand out.
than cedar shakes that would have been historic. And
Good points. Good points.
I do think that their appeal is really the durability. I mean, I think you can go like 40 years without replacing a metal roof generally, and that there are certain parts of buildings that don't have an infinite life. We're trying to make our 100-year-old buildings here in this town last another 100 years. And what's going to take them to last another 100 years after that? It's just kind of at some point wood built structures decay and parts need to be replaced, and every roof at some point needs to be replaced. But I don't really think that.
Okay, thank you.
Skylights. I think minimizing their like visual impact is probably a warranted thing, but they're largely experienced from above and from inside the house.
Okay.
We've had discussions of solar panels from that visible from street frontage, which we've approved.
Right, and that somehow made it into our code 15 years ago.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I mean,
these are newer.
Jimmy Carter put solar panels on the White House in the 70s.
There you go.
So,
okay, yeah, minimizing that visual impact is.
and I think we really, in general, we want to drive through our neighborhood and make it feel historic. That the houses they're old, the buildings are preserved, and they look good, and the landscaping accentuates it, and the transportation and right away features are compatible, and that the homes modifications that are done are not destroying something that has historic value.
Right.
So
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you for talking to me about this.
okay,
That's all I
well,
have.
I will move that we adjourn. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right. Opposed.
Have a good night, everybody.
Yeah.